Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to take you through the process of how I spread seed. So first, what you want to do is start with a good seed bed. And what this means is if you're seeding a new area where you want to either replace all existing species or develop a new community where one is not currently present, then you need to develop a pretty clean seed bed. And this means killing off any perennial weeds which are present on site that you don't want to be there after your community starts establishing. And you can do this a number of different ways, including repeated tillage, herbicides. So in this particular scenario, what we did was till up an area, and this community is going to be managed over time to try to get that turf grass out of there. Some herbicides will likely be used at some point to spot treat any areas that are coming back. So tillage itself often will not kill perennial weeds. You're probably going to have to do some other management strategy, like using herbicides or even fire in some cases. If you are planting into an existing plant community, such as a lawn, where maybe you just want to add some diversity, then you don't need to kill off the existing plant community. This is known as interseeding. So you're seeding between currently existing plants that you would like to keep at least some of. And for this method, you don't have to prepare the seed bed. One thing that can be helpful is to concentrate your seed in areas that are particularly bare. Or maybe even making a few bare spots for new things to establish. But if you are interseeding, like in this particular clip, what I'm doing is interseeding. That does not require a super thorough seed bed prep, like if you are trying to completely establish a new plant community. So it's really important to have a filler whenever you're mixing seeds to cast. So the role of the filler is to make it so that you don't overcast your seed. Almost everyone wants to use way more seed than is necessary for a specific site. Other strategies that can help you use only as much seed as you actually need are dividing your entire seed allotment up into multiple portions. So if you have a smaller area, maybe you can divide your seed in half. If you're working with an area that is like an acre, maybe you want to divide your seed into quarter acre allotments. And if you're working with like 20 acres or something, well, then you might even want to consider getting into mechanical planting methods like broadcast seeding. So what we're talking about today is hand casting. And this means that we're not using any equipment other than our hands to cast the seed. This is best for smaller areas. As you can imagine, it can get pretty tedious to hand cast large areas. So this filler is important because every person I've ever seen cast seed, if they have not been taught how to do it, they automatically want to use like 10 times as much as what they really need. In this particular case, we're using rice hulls as filler. You can also use sand. I've had people use leaf litter, vermiculite, all sorts of stuff can be used. The nice thing about the rice hulls is in this case, they are organic and they're very light and fluffy. So it mixes really well even with tiny seeds, whereas something like sand is going to be a bit heavy, so your seeds might not mix with it super well. Prairie seeds, native perennial seeds, are often much tinier and lighter than many of the seeds that most people are familiar with, like gardening seeds. So if you think of a kernel of corn, that is huge compared to the dust-like prairie plant seeds. So whenever you're mixing your filler with your seed, you want probably at least 3 times as much filler as you have seed. This is going to vary hugely based on what kind of seed you're using, because if you are using something like a cover crop, that's going to have a different seeding rate. Since cover crop seeds are much, much larger than prairie seeds, it's easier to put down too many native wildflower seeds as opposed to something like a cover crop, since the seeds of a cover crop are larger. So within each handful, you're going to be holding fewer seeds. After you get your filler all nice and mixed up, and you want it really well mixed up, like mix it some more, and then mix it again just for good measure. You'll take that and you'll just hand cast it over an area. Another nice thing about the rice hulls or something like vermiculite is it helps kind of give you a sense of what it's since it's differently colored than like the grass or the soil that you're casting on, and more readily apparent than some of the seeds. It's easier to see where you're casting to and what your coverage is. So keep an eye on, you want just basically a light dusting of seeds over the surface of the soil. Then after that, it's a really good idea to use straw. I really like to use the easy straw. This stuff has a binder in it, which is really nice. So what that binder does is when you wet it down, it holds all the pieces of straw together and kind of anchors the straw to the soil. And this helps keep it from blowing away. And this actually works quite well. Like, it's surprising what easy straw can withstand once it's been wetted down. It's more expensive than straw without a binder in it, but I find that if you're working in a smaller space, it's often worth it to just go with the easy straw with a binder. Okay, so after if you are using the binder straw, you're going to want to cast that, and then it's really dusty. I recommend wearing a mask. So after all your straw is out and you've got a good coverage rate, go ahead and wet that down pretty thoroughly, and then you're good to go. So as far as coverage rate for the straw, you still do want some gaps in between. When you step back from it, you want it to kind of look like you've got a solid mat of straw over the surface. But as you zoom up and look closer, you want to be able to see some of the soil through the pieces of straw. You don't want to completely like smother the site in straw, because some of the seeds will need light to germinate. Some seeds need darkness to germinate and some need light to germinate. So by providing, if you've got a multi-species mix and you'll be providing different conditions, some of the straw will cause darker areas, and some of the open areas in the straw will allow light to penetrate, and this will allow a good diversity of species to get the conditions that they need. So yeah, that's how I go through the process of preparing my seed mixes to cast, and then going through and casting the seed itself. If you have any questions, let me know. I'd be happy to help. If you're in the area, I can help design a custom seed mix blend for you and your project. Thanks everyone for tuning in today, and see you soon. Bye.